Do you think too much? Not just a lot, but so much that it keeps you up at night, paralyzes your decisions, and turns every simple situation into a complex analysis? You're not alone. Psychology has a name for this. It's called overthinking, and it affects millions of people worldwide. But overthinking is not just a habit. It's a deeply wired cognitive pattern that serves a purpose, even when that purpose backfires. Let's start with what overthinking actually is. Psychologists distinguish between two main types. The first is rumination, which means repetitively thinking about the past. You replay conversations, second-guess decisions, and dwell on things you can no longer change. The second is worry, which means repetitively thinking about the future. You imagine worst-case scenarios, plan for disasters that may never happen, and catastrophize every possible outcome. Both types share one thing in common: your brain is stuck in a loop, and it can't find the exit. Research shows that overthinking activates the default mode network in the brain, a system that becomes active when we're not focused on the external world. In healthy amounts, this network helps with self-reflection and planning. But in overthinkers, it goes into overdrive, creating endless loops of thought that feel impossible to stop. It's like a car engine revving in neutral, burning fuel but going nowhere. Why do some people overthink more than others? One major factor is perfectionism. Perfectionists overthink because they're terrified of making mistakes. Every decision feels like it has to be the right one, so they analyze every option from every angle. Research by psychologists Gordon Flett and Paul Hewitt has shown that perfectionism is strongly linked to anxiety, depression, and chronic overthinking. The desire to be flawless creates a mind that cannot rest. Another factor is low tolerance for uncertainty. Some people are psychologically uncomfortable with not knowing what will happen. This intolerance drives them to think and think and think, as if excessive analysis could somehow predict and control the future. Studies have found that people who score high on the intolerance of uncertainty scale are significantly more likely to be chronic overthinkers. Their brains treat uncertainty as a threat, and thinking feels like the only defense. There's also a powerful connection between overthinking and trauma. When someone has been hurt unexpectedly in the past, their brain develops a hypervigilant pattern. It scans constantly for danger, analyzes every situation for hidden threats, and refuses to let its guard down. What looks like overthinking to others is actually the brain's misguided attempt to prevent future pain. The tragic irony is that this vigilance often causes more suffering than the events it's trying to prevent. Overthinking has a profound impact on decision-making. Psychologists call it analysis paralysis, the state where you have so much information and so many considerations that you become completely unable to choose. You might spend hours deciding what to eat, what to wear, or what message to send, because every option feels weighted with impossible significance. The overthinker doesn't see choices. They see potential consequences, and everyone feels catastrophic. Relationships are another casualty. Overthinkers often read too much into their partner's words, tone, and behavior. A simple text message that says fine can trigger an hour of analysis. Does fine mean they're upset? Are they losing interest? Did I do something wrong? This constant analysis creates anxiety that can push partners away, creating the very rejection that the overthinker fears. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy driven by thought. Sleep is perhaps the most obvious victim of overthinking. When the external world goes quiet at night, the internal world gets louder. Overthinkers lie in bed reviewing the day, planning tomorrow, and replaying old conversations. Their minds refuse to shut off. Research shows that rumination is one of the strongest predictors of insomnia. The more you think in bed, the less you sleep, and the less you sleep, the more you overthink. It's a vicious cycle. But here's something that might surprise you. Overthinking is not always a weakness. In fact, the same cognitive depth that causes overthinking can also lead to extraordinary insight. Overthinkers often have a richer understanding of complex situations, greater empathy for others' perspectives, and a more nuanced view of the world. The problem isn't the thinking itself. The problem is that the thinking becomes compulsive rather than constructive. Psychologists have developed several effective strategies for managing overthinking. One is called mindful awareness, which involves noticing when you're overthinking without judging yourself for it. Simply labeling the pattern, saying to yourself "I'm ruminating right now," can create enough distance to break the loop. Another technique is scheduled worry time, where you designate a specific period each day for overthinking and deliberately postpone it outside that window. Cognitive restructuring is another powerful approach. This involves challenging the thoughts that fuel overthinking. When you catch yourself catastrophizing, you ask, what is the evidence for this? What is the probability that this worst case will actually happen? What would I tell a friend who had this thought? These questions help the overthinker see that their anxious predictions are usually far worse than reality. Physical activity is also remarkably effective. Research has consistently shown that exercise reduces rumination by shifting blood flow from the brain's rumination centers to the motor and sensory regions. Even a 20-minute walk can interrupt an overthinking spiral. The body moves, and the mind follows. Perhaps the most important shift for overthinkers is learning to accept uncertainty. This doesn't mean giving up or being careless. It means recognizing that no amount of thinking will ever eliminate all risk, and that's okay. Life is inherently uncertain, and the attempt to think your way to certainty is not just exhausting. It's impossible. If you're an overthinker, you're not broken. Your mind is powerful, and that power can be directed. The goal isn't to stop thinking. It's to learn when to think and when to let go. Your deep mind is a gift. The challenge is teaching it when to rest. So here's the question for you today. What's the one thought you can't stop thinking about, and what would happen if you simply let it go?